Oh, this is Mr. Hornsby 3. This is the Mr. Hornsby 3 show, and today we start X-Men month. One of my favorite months of the year. I love Batman month, I love X-Men month, and I love Mortal Kombat month. I also love anime month as well. But, yeah. So, and today we are going to be talking about everybody's favorite time traveler from X-Men, Cable. We're going to talk about his first appearance in the first episode of X-Men the Animated Series. Well, it wasn't the first episode, it was like the 6th or 7th. And we're going to talk about his, let me rephrase. We're going to talk about all his appearances in X-Men the Animated Series, started with Slave Island. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Wolverine and the X-Men and if he would possibly have been in that show or not. Then we'll talk about X-Men Evolution and whether or not he was possibly going to be in that show because, you know, especially with the final season, was all focused on Apocalypse with X-Men Evolution. But, yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Cable's first appearance in the animated series, which was the episode titled Slave Island. Now, this was the follow-up episode to the Cold Vengeance that we had just had, where Wolverine had ran away from the X-Men. It was after the Morlock episode, and then him and Sabretooth have a battle. What was it, in Antarctica or something like that? And, you know, it's also like the episode after, well, the Morlock episode was the famous episode of the Wolverine meme where he freaking is rubbing the picture of freaking Jean with Cyclops, although he was in love with Jean, so yeah. And I believe the Morlock episode was the first episode that introduced Wolverine having, you know, being in love with Jean. But anyway, first episode, Slave Island. And we really don't see Cable till like the middle of the freaking episode, because like it's all about how, you know, everybody thought Gambit had betrayed them and turned them in because Jubilee hatched a plan to freaking get all the mutants freed from the collars and all that. But they found out that Gambit had ratted them out because Jubilee told Gambit about the plan. But it was all a plan by Gambit to really free everybody, because he knew that if Jubilee's plan, I guess he knew Jubilee's plan wasn't going to work because of what happened to Storm. Because when they first turn the colors off against Storm, she comes up, she tries to attack them, but then the Sentinels attack and frickin' they put Storm into a what was it, a freaking holding cell or something, where she was freaking out because she had her claustrophobia, which they touched on that in the Morlock episode. But anyway, so Gambit goes and meets the leader. I wonder if that's the freaking leader from the Incredible Hulk, I don't know. But he goes and meets the leader, and, you know, Gambit pulls a trick to beat up the guards that were taking him back to his cell. And then we see Cable pop up. He frees Gambit. Gambit asks who he is. And Cable says, I'm the wild man of Borneo. And, you know, he disappears. But he gives Gambit a key to free himself from the collar. Then Gambit goes and saves Jubilee and Storm. You know, Jubilee's kind of mad at Gambit for freaking, because she thought Gambit betrayed everybody, but she really didn't. Not to mention, this episode was the first episode to introduce some of the main villains of the show. It introduced freaking, the Blob and Mystique. I think Pyro was even trapped on that island. And, A couple other X-Men characters we didn't get to see throughout the rest of the show. But, you know, one character we didn't see was Dust. Anyway, I'll talk about that later on the video Wednesday. Anyway, so Cable goes after the leader. He also takes on a Sentinel and that, and then Gambit, Jubilee, and Storm all beat, you know, the Genosha people with the help of the other mutants and all that. And then the episode ends. And the reason why I'm talking about this episode to start out the video, and then I'll talk about the next episode, is because I got a little bit of theory that I'm going to talk about with Cable in those two episodes in particular, because every other episode we've seen after that, Cable had a different objective. But I will talk about those episodes too. But, so, now let's jump forward to, what is it, like 3 more episodes after that, where we get the Cure episode, which is the second appearance of Cable, and he's hunting down Dr. Adler. He's looking to kill him. Starts out with him battling the Archangel, which he was Angel at the time, and he wants to know where Adler is, and Angel tells him where he is, and then they have a fight, and then Angel's girlfriend accidentally blasts Angel or whatever. So, yeah. Anyway, this episode came after the Juggernaut introduction video, but Cable has his mission to go after Adler. He finally captures Adler, but come to find out, Adler was already dead, because Apocalypse had killed Adler. And it was Mystique posing as Adler, and she's the one that made up the Cure thing for Apocalypse, which is kind of weird, because when you think about Mystique, you think about her working for Magneto, not freaking Apocalypse. But in this show, and in X-Men Evolution, she worked for Apocalypse, I guess. Well, she starts out working for Magneto in X-Men Evolution, but we'll, you know, I'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, the reason why I want to talk about these two episodes first is because, like I said, the objective for Cable in the episodes we see after that, which is Time Fugitive and Beyond Good and Evil, he's got a different objective. But here, he's specifically looking for Dr. Adler. And at Slave Island, he's specifically trying to stop what's going on in Genosha. And if you pay attention to X-Men 97, we find out Cable has been trying to stop a major incident that happens on Genosha. And so I'm guessing that the first 2 appearances of Cable in the animated series are not him trying to stop Apocalypse, like he would be in all the other episodes of X-Men. But it seems like his objective was to stop Dr. Adler, stop the colors and all that stuff. So I'm guessing the Cable in Slave Island and the Cure are the Cable that came from the Utopia world of Bastion. Because after Cure, every other episode we see with Cable, he's going up against Apocalypse. Starting with Time Fugitive, then Beyond Good and Evil. Which is weird, because why wasn't he a part of the 5th Horseman? I don't know. We'll talk about that anyway in a minute. So, I think what it is Cable, like, he's kind of like Bishop. He goes back in time, and since he's got a time machine, he can live outside of time, but the thing is, maybe he's an alternate Cable from the Bastion world, which I'll talk more about that when I start talking about X-Men 97 after I get through Time Fugitive and the Beyond Good and Evil episodes. But as a Cable, you know, it might be different, like, universes that Cable comes from, because, like, probably multiple different... And we kind of seen that at the end of Season 1 of X-Men 97. But... So there might be different versions, and I think this Cable in the first 2 appearances of his was Cable from the Bastion, Utopia, that he tells the X-Men about in X-Men 97. So then after that, we get to what people know Cable for, and that's being an enemy of Apocalypse. So we see Cable taking on Apocalypse in the future, in the beginning of Time Fugitive. But then his team in that starts disappearing, and his son Tyler starts disappearing, and he's wondering why, and he's asking his time machine, and the time machine's telling him what's going on. It says it's got to do with Bishop freaking time traveling through time, and trying to stop the plague. And apparently in Cable's world, that plague has to go on so that Cable's world can exist. But by the end of Time Fugitive, Cable figures out a way to save Bishop's future and save his future, which depends on Wolverine. So, yeah. So after that, he goes back in time in part 2. He tries to take down Bishop, but he don't want to hurt Bishop, and we don't understand why he don't want to hurt Bishop until X-Men 97. But because the time machine asked him why he didn't kill Bishop. He said, well, he's just trying to save his future. Yeah, that's not the real reason why you were trying not to kill him. But anyway, so after that, he figures out that if Wolverine gets hit by the plague, his healing factor will create the antibodies that will stop the plague. Which, Beast confirms at the end of the episode. Beast frickin' says, well, we should use your body. We should use this, for whatever your, use those antibodies to stop the plague from happening, which saves Bishop's future and saves Cable's future. So, after Slave Island and The Cure and the Time Fugitive 2-parter, we don't see Cable again until Beyond Good and Evil, where he starts out fighting Apocalypse, but Apocalypse takes his time traveling device and tries to travel back in time so that he can change things to where he don't have to deal with an endless battle against Cable and other mutants like Cable, like the X-Men and that. And pretty much how that ends is it ends up being where Apocalypse only exists outside of times because they destroy his Lazarus chamber that's given him such longevity to survive. Cable destroys it in the future, but then they go back to the past in part 3 of Beyond Good and Evil, which it was also a setup too, but anyway. So Cable destroys Apocalypse's chamber from when it first was constructed. Now, after that, you think that's the end of Apocalypse. But there was an episode called The Fifth Horseman in Season 5 that, brings Apocalypse back. Finds a way to get Apocalypse back. I wonder if it's going to get brought up in X-Men 97 Season 2, because, I'm pretty sure somebody's going to say, well, wait a minute, how the heck are you back when we frickin' wiped out your thing and you only existed outside of time? Unless Jubilee told them about, her and Beast's adventure where Apocalypse was about to be revived by Fabian Cortez, but, But Beast and Jubilee did not see that freaking Apocalypse betrayed Fabian Cortez, so, yeah. But anyway, we got into the line in Beyond the Good and Evil where Apocalypse, or Cable and Beast are having a conversation about, well, actually it's like First, Cyclops asks Professor why is Apocalypse kidnapping all the psychics and all that. And then Cable says, who cares? He's pure evil and he must be stopped. And then Beast tells Cable, well, if he's pure evil, then even if we kill him, someone more evil is going to take his place and be the evil entity. And Cable's like, well, I'll worry about that when that time comes. Well, we find out what happened after we find out what happened in X-Men 97 Season 1. So, which, like I said, I'll get to X-Men 97 Season 1 here in a minute. But, so when Cable goes back to the future, he said, you know, take me back to a week before I left my son. But I think what happened was, since Apocalypse was gone, since, you know, he only existed outside of time, does that mean that Adler was still alive and he was working for Bastion? Now, we don't see Adler in X-Men 97, so I'm guessing his death stands still. But I guess nobody realized it was from Apocalypse. So, I don't know. I don't know how the time travel works in these shows, but yeah. So, I'm pretty sure when Cable went back to his future, it was not the future that he had where that Apocalypse was like the top threat anymore, because he went back to the future that was Bastion's Utopia. Now let's get into X-Men 97 Season 1. So, I'll also talk about May the 4th and all that here in a sec after I talk about this. So, X-Men 97. So after, you know, Beyond Good and Evil, we don't see Cable again until Episode 2, the end of Episode 2 of X-Men 97 Season 1. But he's a baby. And then Season 3, it's all about, you know, his mom being revealed to be the clone of Jean Grey, which is Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen. And he gets infected with the plague by Sinister because apparently Cyclops and frickin' Madeline screwed things up when they took him out of the thing early, I guess. And we also see that Cyclops, you know, he doesn't want to say goodbye because he's like, I don't want to abandon my son like my father abandoned me. But didn't you freaking forgive your father? You know. Excuse me. Which I think was what? After all the Dark Phoenix stuff and that? I don't know. It was before all the Dark Phoenix stuff. Dark Phoenix was the end of Season 3. So Cyclops walks out because he don't want to, you know, he don't want to send Cable to the future. But we do see that Bishop was in the past from Episode 1 until this episode where he then takes Cable to the future, but he gets ripped away from him in the time portal or whatever. And Cable, I guess, woke up in his future, and then Bishop went back to his future. Which, you know, I'm going to talk about Bishop next week and why the heck he was still in the present time in X-Men 97, Season 1. So, yeah, so then we don't see Cable again until Episode 7. Where he comes in, he throws the grenade, takes down the, what the fuck were those things called? The Prime Sentinel, yeah. Where he freaking blows up the Prime Sentinel and he says, the only way to kill those things is by these plasma grenades. And this is where Jean and Cyclops figure out. Actually, no, we saw Cable in Episode 5, which was like the best episode of X-Men 97 Season 1. That was like the best episode. And, you know, that ending with Gambit dying was just so sad, man. It was crazy how that ended. But we see Cable in Episode 5 where he's trying to warn Madeline Pryor that something's about to happen on Genosha. He's like, well, he's coming. And she's like, who's coming? And he's like, because she's like, well, Cable. And she's like, who's coming? He's like, he's coming. And then, like, she sees his eyes and she sees it's her son. And she's like, Cable? Or, Nathan? You survived? And then he shifts back to his future and he's like, I'm sorry, Mom. And she's like, well, sorry for what? And then, boom, all hell just broke loose on Genosha. But, anyway. So, let's get back to episode 7. We see Cable. We hear the music play. It's like, it was a low freaking sounding to it. Like, it's like, you see him, it's like, and then Cyclops, with Jean's reading his mind, and then freaking Cyclops sees that it's his son Nathan, which explains why he didn't want to save Jean at the end of the cure, because, you know, Jean was falling, and I think, like, Rogue saved her. But Cable was just going to let her fall to her death. Which, if Cable would which Cable should have saved her, because if she would have died there, then Sinister wouldn't have been able to get a hold of Jean and clone Jean, and then his mom wouldn't have been made. But, you know what? It is what it is. So, then we get Cable in the 3-parter of Tolerance's Extinction, where he's got to help the X-Men stop Bastion. He tells the X-Men about Bastion. He tells, you know, them about, you know, what Bastion did and all that stuff. I said, okay, I mean, it kind of doesn't make no sense, because it's like, wait a minute, so Bastion has Genosha attacked, and he uses the backing, people backed his Prime Sentinel program because of what happened on Genosha. That's kind of a wonky storyline, and you know what, I'm going to talk about that because I'm going to re-review X-Men 97 Season 1 again sometime this month. But kind of a wonky, like, storyline. How would that work? I mean, like, you know, did Bash just say, well, you know what, my Prime Sentinels could stop whatever happened at Genosha, stop it from happening? Or maybe he just said, well, you know, now that Genosha's been attacked, that, you know, these mutants might retaliate and try to kill us humans. Maybe that's how he got backing, because he convinced them that now the mutants are going to want revenge on Genosha being attacked. Which we did see in the final episode of the original run of the show, Graduation Day. Magneto was already kind of ruling Genosha. So, I don't know. Anyway, so, yeah, so I think, though, Cable, see, the Cable in the first 2 episodes we see are the Cable from that time frame with the Bastion thing, and he was in Genosha to try to stop the Genosha massacre, but apparently he went too far back. But then he revealed himself to the leader and was working for the leader there for a bit. But, you know, so I'm guessing, you know, and then the other Cable we seen in all the other episodes were from the Apocalypse timeline. But then, when they beat Apocalypse in Beyond Good and Evil, when Cable went back to his future ended up being the same fate as the Cable we seen in the first 2 appearances by him, which was Slave Island and The Cure. So, he ended up being stuck against an even more greater evil in Bastion, which was, I guess, Nimrod. Like, Nimrod was, like, infected his dad after the events of the One Man Worth episode. So, yeah. So I'm guessing when they beat Apocalypse, Cable's time changed, but not for the good, it changed for the worst. Because now, instead of dealing with Apocalypse, he had to deal with Bastion. And Bastion was the evil that replaced Apocalypse. But now, Bastion is gone. It seems like he's dead. But apparently he comes back. But it seems like he's dead. So, Cable is going to be... So Cable... I have to deal with that. I think in X-Men 97 Season 2, Cable's future will revert back to the Apocalypse timeline. Which we'll find out when X-Men Season 2 comes out sometime this year. They say summer. And like I said, I'll talk about all that frickin' Wednesday on the video. But let's talk about some other, X-Men stuff we might have got to see Cable in. First off, let's talk about the Deadpool cartoon that was supposed to come out years ago, made by, who was that guy? What was that guy's name? I know he was a Spider-Man, Brand New Day, and I think he played the Prowler in, yeah, he was the Prowler, or not Spider-Man, Brand New Day, Spider-Man Homecoming. Donald Glover, yeah. Donald Glover was going to make a Daredevil cartoon, or not Daredevil, Deadpool cartoon, and it was going to be on FX. But they ended up canceling it, so Donald Glover, I guess, got the part in the frickin' Spider-Man movie, and he ended up being the Prowler. And I guess they were going to put the Prowler in the Spider-Man universe. I don't know what happened with that, but I guess they were going to put the Prowler in. But, I mean, he does show up in Spider-Man Homecoming, and then he's also got a part in the second Spider-Verse movie, so I don't know. Yeah, they did put the Prowler, they put the character of the Prowler, not Donald Glover, but they put the character of the Prowler in the Spider-Verse movie because he ended up being Miles' uncle. So we might have seen Cable in the Deadpool cartoon, but that got canceled, so we'll never know. Maybe Marvel will come back to that idea and bring Deadpool back. Maybe give Donald Glover the chance to make his Deadpool cartoon. Who knows? Especially with how well X-Men 97 was received a couple years ago. I don't know. Plus, with the popularity of the Ryan Reynolds Daredevil movies, we'll have to see. So, let's talk about Wolverine and the X-Men, because there's a big cliffhanger ending in Wolverine and the X-Men that we'll probably never see again, unless they decide to revive Wolverine and the X-Men after they're finished with X-Men 97. But was Cable going to be a part of Wolverine and the X-Men? I don't think I heard anything about it. I know they said Season 2 of Wolverine and the X-Men, Colossus was supposed to rejoin the X-Men. And I think his sister Ileana was supposed to as well. But we never got that because the show got canceled. But I'm pretty sure if they did get Season 2 of Wolverine and the X-Men, and they had the Age of Apocalypse, because I'm still not sure that X-Men 97, even before the Bo DeMayo stuff happened, I don't think they were going to fully do the whole Age of Apocalypse storyline. I think what they were going to do was what they did with X-Men Legends 2, Rise of Apocalypse, where it's like, it's kind of got some characters in that from the Age of Apocalypse, and some, things from that. And I'm pretty sure they're still going to do that with this show. But I think Wolverine and the X-Men Season 2 would have had Cable in it. I think what would have happened was we would have seen Cable replace Bishop in the future that Xavier's in. Because they saved the Days of Future Past timeline, and then it became the Age of Apocalypse timeline. So I'm guessing Cable was going to show up in Wolverine and the X-Men. Maybe if he only showed up like maybe an episode or so. Because Wolverine and the X-Men, they did like a 26 episodes of Season 1. They probably did 26 more episodes of Season 2. Which, I will say, the issue I had with Wolverine and the X-Men was all the long freaking breaks after, like, a certain amount of episodes. Like, I think the first run, it went all the way up to the Nitro episode. Or no, I think it might have been Wolverine and the Hulk episode. And then after that, they kept showing reruns over and over again until they then showed the next chapter, which had the Nitro episodes and all that. No, actually, I think the Nitro episode was the last episode, the first set of episodes they did. Then they showed, the second set, which went from after the Nitro episode all the way up until the episode that had Juggernaut in it. Then they took another break, and then they put more on that went for a little bit. Then they finally showed the final bits of freaking season 1 of Wolverine and the X-Men. It's like, Jesus Christ, that was too long a break. First of all, you're doing 26 consecutive episodes of a freaking season. So, yeah, but I think maybe Cable would have been a big part of Wolverine and the X-Men season 2 because it was based on the Age of Apocalypse. Cable and Apocalypse are arch enemies. The whole reason why Cable was brought into the world was because Sinister wanted an ultimate weapon to beat Apocalypse. And then he got Cable, which Cable figured out how to beat Apocalypse. Which, I forgot to talk about the other stuff for X-Men 97, like, Bastion had Sinister asked frickin' Cable how many times Cable tried to stop the Genosha massacre, and, Cable said over 200 times. Also, when did Sinister put I guess he put it in while he still had him as the baby. But why didn't it interact when Sinister and Cable seen each other in Beyond Good and Evil Part 4? Yeah, it was a brief interaction, but they did interact with each other. Why didn't it activate then? I guess Sinister didn't activate it, or he didn't recognize it was Cable. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, Cable tried to stop the Genosha massacre like numerous times, and didn't work out because it was like one of those set things where it had to happen, or else something else would have been eliminated. Yeah, I wonder if they're gonna do a little joke about that, because the original X-Men the animated series had a lot of time travel. 97 had some time travel. I don't know. The X-Men movies have had time travel in them. We'll find out. Anyway, yeah, I wonder if to do a joke to that in Avengers Doomsday or something, or they bring it up or something. Anyway, so yeah, I think Cable would have been a big part of season 2 of Wolverine the X-Men, because Apocalypse was going to be the main villain. Cable and Apocalypse, their arch nemesis. So, of course, they were going to fight one way or another. But we don't know, because Wolverine the X-Men is season 2. Now let's talk about X-Men Evolution, which I'm shocked we didn't get nothing about Cable in that, because, all of season 4 was about Apocalypse. Now, we had an episode of season 2 where Mindbender was trying to free Apocalypse. Then we had the episode of season 3, and then the end of season 3 where they're trying to stop Mindbender from completely resurrecting Apocalypse, but he does get resurrected. And maybe if they would have went on with the season 5 of X-Men Evolution, like I think they were thinking about doing, I think we probably would have got Cable in season 5 of X-Men Evolution, because Apocalypse got sent into the future. Cable's in the future, so Cable probably would have came back and probably interacted with the young version of his parents in that show. But I don't know by that point. I think season 5, if they would have done season 5 of X-Men Evolution, it probably would have been a big time skip between what happened at the end of 4 and then the beginning of season 5. So, but I think we would have seen Cable. Cable would have interacted with his parents early. But I don't know. We never got that season 5, but I think Cable would have been a part of not only Wolverine and the X-Men, but he would have been a part of season 5 of X-Men Evolution if they would have had him. Now, I know apparently from promotional material, which I'll talk about Wednesday, looks like Cable is going to be a big part of season 2 of X-Men 97. which is good. Because Cable was like my favorite freaking time traveler. I guess I like him because he seems like a taller version of Wolverine. I know he's Cyclops' son and all that, but you know what? Seems like a taller version of Wolverine. Probably why him and Wolverine got along so well. Plus, you know, Cable had resentment toward his dad because his dad didn't say goodbye to him when they sent him to the future. So yeah. I mean, even when he reunites with frickin' Cyclops in 97, he's like, this is no time for family reunion, Dad. He's kind of an asshole towards Cyclops there. But then, you know, he kind of, you know, softened up at the end of the 10th episode of season 1. So, I don't know. We'll see. But, yeah. I really, you know, Cable is like one of my favorite X-Men characters. And, you know, I know his arch nemesis is Apocalypse, and there's like different versions of Cable. I know in the comics they have like a bunch of different versions of Cable. So, yeah. And that's what I think the case was with the first 2 episodes we see Cable in X-Men the Animated Series. That was Cable from the Bastion future. And then when he found out that frickin' Adler was dead, I guess he went back to his future, and then he had to deal with Apocalypse. So yeah, and then after he kills Apocalypse, he goes back to having to deal with Bastion. So yeah. Anyway, let me know what you know. I don't know, and that's for favorite Cable moments. I just love how when he frickin' tells when him and Wolverine are getting ready to fight, and Wolverine's like, he says something to Cable, and Cable's like, yeah, well, you know what? We'll fight, but you'll lose. And then he calls him outdated. Like, he did kind of overpower Wolverine, though. He frickin' got him and frickin' took him back to his headquarters. And, especially that moment when he comes in and frickin' X-Men 97, it's that season 1, and he frickin' throws that grenade at that frickin' Prime Sentinel that was, Boulevard Trask, and he's frickin' like, sitting there being an asshole towards Cyclops. He's like, this is no time for family reunion, Dad. I liked seeing him fight the frickin' Sentinel in the Slave Island episode. I also like how he's frickin', he tells, he frickin' tells Mystique while she's out there, he's like, well, that's kind of hard for me to believe that Adler's dead when you're right here in front of me. Also, when he encounters Pyro and Pyro calls him Darlin and he blasts him, he's like, he's like, don't call me Darlin. And then, of course, my all-time favorite moment of Cable, of course, when he talks about how evil Apocalypse is. He says, who cares? He's pure evil. Let's kill him. Shoot. Hey, yeah, those are my favorite moments of Cable from X-Men the Animated Series and X-Men 97. And I always love the theme song they have for Cable. I mean, like, it was kind of funny. I wish they would have done it for Bishop while he was in the X-Men 97 Season 1 episodes. We never heard that Bishop frickin' theme song in X-Men 97. But every time they showed him, I think, you know, outside of the frickin' One Man's Worth, I think that's the only time we didn't see Bishop's didn't hear Bishop's theme song. The frickin', I don't know, why didn't they do that? Come on now, Bishop and Cable are 2 of the coolest characters in X-Men, and plus they had like cool theme songs, especially Cable's theme song. I like Bishop's theme song too, but you know, I don't know, it's just weird. But yeah. Anyway, so happy May the 4th to everybody. I spent my May the 4th watching the final 2 episodes of frickin' Maul, which I'll tell you what, I have to say, I know there's been a lot of Star Wars shows since they took over. And I liked the Obi-Wan show. I thought it was okay, but boy, did I love this Maul show. Then again, I'm a big fan of Maul. Darth Maul, whatever you want to call it. And we got to see Darth Maul finally face off against Darth Vader. Now, yeah, Darth Maul was outclassed by Darth Vader because Darth Vader was so damn powerful, especially during that time. But we got to see Darth Maul take on Darth Vader. And I know people said it happened in the Clone Wars. But one, I think people said that wasn't canon. And two, like, I didn't watch Clone Wars, so yeah. But I was happy seeing my two favorite Siths go at it. Like I said, I had hope for Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens, but then when they started doing the Reylo crap, I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, oh boy. You know, because Kylo Ren started out awesome in Force Awakens, and then just, I don't know, turned into a complete wuss. And by the time we got to the end of the thing with the Rise of Skywalker, just, I don't know, just sucks. Even though Darth Maul is kind of an anti-hero now, he's still the same Darth Maul he was in Star Wars Episode 1. Unlike frickin' with him and Darth Vader are like the two coolest Sith lords they've had out there. But anyway. But seeing Darth Maul take on Darth Vader, it's awesome. I had a nerdgasm. Yeah. Anyway. Please like this video, leave a comment, subscribe for more. Let me know what you guys thought of the Darth Maul Shadow Lord show. And let me know if there's anything else you would have liked to see me talk about with Cable on this video. Because, you know, I think I pretty much talked about everything. But, I don't know. Looking forward to seeing more Cable in Season 2, which I'm going to talk more about Season 2 of X-Men 97 this Wednesday. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll do it. Catch you guys later, and may the 4th be with ya.